which is something we all aspire to. For those who love to smile as they read, best-selling author Karen Witmeyer offers warm-hearted historical romances with a flair of humor, feisty heroines, and swoon-worthy Texas heroes. A transplant from California, Karen came to Texas for college, and she met a cowboy disguised as a computer nerd who married him and never left the state. Above all, Karen is a firm believer of the power of happy endings and ice cream. Y'all welcome her.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. I love being with writers. Usually I have a day job. I work at Abilene Christian University. I'm in charge of their academic catalog, so I don't get to do much fiction writing at work. I have to keep it strictly factual for the academia side. So it's fun to get to be with writers who understand what it's like to be in that process of bleeding onto the page, basically. Whether you write fiction or nonfiction, you are leaving a piece of yourself on the page when you write. And so it's wonderful to be here with you. I know we have a wide range of experience in here. I know we have some who are very experienced published authors. I'm guessing we probably have some that are beginners too. And like I was saying to one of the ladies earlier, my goal whenever I go to a writer's conference is to come home with one good nugget that I can put to work in my manuscripts to make them better. So I'm hoping that that's what you get today. At least one good nugget that you can take home and you can put to work into your books to make them stronger, to invite your readers in, and hopefully to sell and become wonderful best-selling authors. That's what we all want to do, right? I also love that I have this music stand. I was a band nerd growing up, and this is just like coming home. I feel like I should get my flute out and just be ready to have a concert going right here. This is just awesome. I love it, love it, love it. Okay, so for the first half of the presentation today, we're going to be talking about author voice. And this ties in really well with what we're going to do in the second half, which is talking about character voice or writing with deep point of view. These are kind of similar ideas, but a little bit different. And so we're going to start first with author voice. I'm going to talk about what it is, how you can develop your own, how you can discover what your strengths are there. And then we're going to figure out how to avoid some of the pitfalls that are easy to fall into that can kind of stagnate your author voice or alienate you from your reader. That's the thing you don't want to do, is you don't want to alienate your reader. So what exactly is author voice? I remember I started going to national conferences back in 2003. I wasn't published, actually 2005. I wasn't published. I didn't have my signed contract until 2009. So I was just there trying to soak up information, trying to learn the market, trying to understand the industry. And I just knew if I went and I sat in on these agent and editor panels that they would give me the magic key to being a published author. Right? Because these are the people that know the industry. And so I was sitting in there, those sessions, I was taking notes, and I was ready. Give it to me. What do you want? I will write it, and I will send it to you, and you will love it. And so I was ready. And so I was sitting there, and I was waiting. What are you looking for? That's the big key. What are you looking for? And they answered with really vague things. Like, we want a story that captivates us. We want a voice that's fresh. I'm like, what is that? I don't understand. You're supposed to tell me like ABC, this is what I want. And then I go home and I write ABC and I give it to you and you're happy. That is not what they gave me. And I was just so frustrated. I was like, okay, I don't understand. What does a fresh voice mean? How does a story captivate you? I have a nice story. Doesn't it captivate you? I don't understand. And so I had to start doing some digging. What is author voice? What are they looking for? So I did some investigating, and I really didn't come to a complete understanding of this until after I was published, which seems a little odd, but that's kind of how it happened. So there really is no magic formula. Everybody's author voice is different. It's not like they're looking for one thing. They're looking for you. They're looking for what is your special voice, what is your personality, what is your style. So when you think about voice, think about your actual voice, right? Everybody's voice is a little bit different. Some are higher pitched, some are lower pitched, some have kind of a nasal quality. Others have accents from the region that they're from. All of these come into play to make your physical, personal voice. It's the same thing when you're writing. It's going to take all of your personality, all of your style, the things that you enjoy, the things that you relate to, and it's going to create a feeling on the page so that when your readers are reading the story, they hear it in a certain voice, okay? So think about sitting around a campfire, all right? And it's story time. We're telling ghost stories around the campfire. If you drone on in a very monotone voice, people are going to fall asleep, right? It's not going to be very interesting. It's not going to be captivating. If you talk in a really nasally whine and people are just like wanting to run away, that's not going to do you any good either, okay? But if you're like an actor who knows how to make the character voices come alive, that know how to build the suspense, that know how to make it feel like that ghost is going to come and get you, you are spellbound, right? You are there, you are in the moment, you are captivated. That's what you want to create when you are writing your book. You want to make it so exciting, so captivating that your reader feels like they are there. They are in the story, they are invested. It's like watching a movie play out in their mind, okay? And that happens when you cultivate your natural voice. So we're going to talk about ways to do that. So as I have up here on the slide, your author voice is the sound that your words make on the page. It's a unique and authentic reflection of you. We're going to talk about that authenticity, especially here in a little bit. It's your personality that's revealed through storytelling. Your style reflected through even your word choice and the tone that you use as you tell your story. I write romance. I enjoy having humor. I enjoy having a little bit of suspense in there. I would not have the right voice for like a John Grisham book. That's not me. That's not how I would be authentic with that. Plus, I don't know anything about law or any of the other stuff that he does. So you have to be true to you, to your life experiences, to your personality, and find ways to make that come alive on the page. All right, do we have any Food Network watchers in the room? Anybody like Food Network? Got a couple? Okay. I love Food Network. I don't actually want to cook anything. I just want to watch. I just want to watch the competition. I'm a competition junkie, I guess. I don't know. I want them to do all the cooking for me, and I can just fantasize about the great meals that would have come out of my kitchen if I had that skill. Maybe that's why I write fiction. I don't know. I don't want to actually do it. I just want to live vicariously through them. There's a show on the Food Network that I think is a really good metaphor for author voice. It's called Chopped. For those of you that have never seen it, I'll do a quick little description about what it is. You have four talented chefs that have proved themselves in the real world. They come together and they compete, and they all have a basket of secret ingredients that are in that basket. So they have to make a dish with those secret ingredients. So everybody has to use the same ingredients, but they're competing to see who's going to make the best dish. Okay, now so you might have stuff like lima beans and chocolate and sweet potato. I mean, they have to put some really weird stuff together, and they have to find a way to make it delicious and palatable to please the judges, right? Okay, when you think about genre fiction, you think about it's kind of formulaic, right? I write romance. You got a boy, you got a girl, you got some kind of problem that's keeping them apart, and then you got to have that happy ending, okay? All romances, all of them, have that formula. How do you make yours stand out? How do you make yours different? How do you make yours, with your own voice, tell a unique story that people are going to want to read? And not just say, oh yeah, I've read that 100 times, toss that away, This is a great example. They each have their own style of cooking. Some are more Asian influenced, some are more, down home Southern. They all have their different style. They use different spices that they get to add. They have their own, they're allowed to go to a pantry and get some additional ingredients to, make stuff. So they can take their own personality, their own skills, and their own, taste of spices and other ingredients and make something unique. When they get done, I will guarantee you, I have seen this show a whole bunch of times, they are never the same end result. They are all very, very different. And they're all delicious and they're all wonderful. And it's because they brought their own skills, their own personality, their own style to the table to make something fresh and unique and different. And that's what we're wanting you to do with Author Voice. So, for instance, since I am a romance writer, I'm also a romance reader. Some of my favorite romance authors, I love historicals, so that's going to come into play. Julia Quinn, she writes very lighthearted, kind of witty style. I love that because I love humor in stories, and so I love her style. Catherine Anderson uses a lot of deep emotions and woundedness, and you really get invested in these wounded heroes. And I kind of like that too, because I'm a Beauty and the Beast fan. I love kind of that wounded hero, you know. And so I love that. That really speaks to me. And then I think of Amanda Quick, who she has kind of an intrigue side and usually a touch of the paranormal kind of in her stuff. And that just kind of is fun and interesting. And so these are all very different authors, but yet I am the reader who enjoys all of them. And because they're each a little bit different, they all have their own style and flavor. All right, so how can you discover your own author voice? The first thing I would say is pay attention to books you love to read. Who are your favorite authors? Who are the people that you would go to the bookstore and buy no matter what? As soon as they have a new release out, man, you are picking that one up and you are devouring it that night. Those are the authors that are speaking to your soul, to your inner person. They really connect with you. Figure out why. What is it about their stories that really connects with you? Is it just the plot? I would say the plot probably has something to do with it, but I bet it's deeper than that. It's how they tell the story, because there are a lot of other books out that probably have similar plots, but they don't tell the story in the same way that connects with you. So I will go back and reread some of those books with more of an analytical eye and pay attention to how that author is telling you the story, how they are creating an experience for you. Do they do it with humor? Do they have some really heart-palpitating suspense? Do they write long sentences, short sentences, long chapters, short chapters? Just look at everything about it. What is it about the way that they communicate the story that resonates with you? And pay attention to that and figure out how maybe you can add some of those techniques to your own story. What style comes naturally to you when you sit down to write? When you're just writing for fun, just for yourself, just what you love, what kind of style comes out naturally? Are you sarcastic? Are you maybe, I don't know, do you like to get into more flowery language, more poetical kind of things? Do you like high drama and suspense? Do you like short, choppy sentences? Do you prefer lots of action? What speaks to you? When you're just writing for fun, what typically comes out? Kind of pay attention to that, because that's kind of where the authentic you is going to live. Instead of when you're trying to write for a particular, what you think the market wants. It's not always what the market wants. It's how you write, and that resonates, and that can change the market. Every new big thing that comes out was not all that special. It wasn't necessarily what the market said they wanted until it came out and created this hunger for it, right? So you're kind of looking for the same thing. Don't always say, oh, well, but the market doesn't want this or the market doesn't want that. Write what is truly on your heart and write it to the best of your ability, and people will find it and they will like it. And who knows, you could be the next big thing that comes out, right? That's what we all want. What personality traits, if you asked your friends and family, what would they say describes you? Are you one of those people that are very empathic? You really care about other people. You're invested in relationships, in friendships, in family. Are you someone who just loves to be the life of the party, who likes to crack jokes and likes to be the center of attention? Are you someone who's a real go-getter? You are always busy. You always have something going on. Are you naturally optimistic, or are you more kind of a pessimistic kind of person? All of those aspects of who you are can come into play in a very real way on the page. So kind of pay attention to who you are, what makes you different from the person sitting next to you, from your sister. You came from the same family, but you're different, right? Siblings are different. How are you different? Pay attention to those things, and that will give you a clue of what type of personality to project onto your page. Okay, so now we've discovered a little bit about who we are as an author. So now how do you develop your author voice? I told you I was a band nerd, right? And this music stand is really good for me. I was also in choir. Met a boy. He was in choir, so I switched. So I grew up all my life doing the band thing. Went off to college. I was in the Big Purple Marching Band for the first semester, and then I met my husband, who was going to be my husband, and he was in choir. And he said, "You should be in choir." I said, "Okay." And so I switched to choir, and we spent the rest of our college years doing choir stuff together. It was wonderful. So, see, romance, it wins every time. But if you think about, a famous soprano, let's go for, more of the cultured voice. Now, pop stars have a lot of strength in their voice too, but I'm coming from the classically trained, so we were going for the opera star. Okay, the lead soprano. When she first started, okay, she had raw talent, most likely. She had a good voice from the time that she was little. But she had to train that voice. She wasn't just ready to jump onto stage immediately, right? She had to do a lot of training. She had to learn about diction. She had to learn to project to the back of the house, right? She had to learn a lot of techniques. She probably had to learn language to sing in, Italian and all these other things that the opera singers have to sing in. She had to put in a lot of work to get her craft up to par, okay? So even if you have a lot of natural talent, even if you have a very unique voice, it's not going to shine the best way that it can until all of your skills are built up. So you have to have that craft writing. You have to have those writing craft skills built up. So you have to master the elements of craft before the richness of your voice can truly shine. The skill that you learn is only going to enhance your voice, okay? The next thing is you need to be authentic. When I told you to pick up your favorite author and read those books and try to figure out, what they do that captivates you as a reader, that's a really good learning experience, but I'm not telling you to go and then try to imitate them, okay? You have to be authentic to who you are. No matter who the best New York Times author is, they are doing it great for them. But if you try to impersonate them, it's like, going to Vegas and you have all the Elvis impersonators, right? Okay, they're kind of okay. They're kind of funny maybe, but they don't have the same power that Elvis himself did, right? There's only one Elvis, okay? All right? And he was unique to him, and he did his thing, and it was really successful. All these Elvis impersonators, it's like, it doesn't matter this Elvis impersonator or that Elvis impersonator or this one over here or that one over there. To the people that come to Vegas, they're all the same. They don't really care. There's one in every corner, So there's nothing unique about that. So if you're just impersonating somebody, it's not going to be authentic to you. It's not going to be your true voice. So learn from the people that have done it well, that have been successful. Use what techniques you can find from them to build your craft, but be authentic to who you are. Your voice is what needs to come across on the page. All right, I have a little example to show you. Hopefully I can figure out how to do this real quick. Let's see. All right. Forgot to turn my volume up. Let me turn my volume up. Oh, it is up. Good. Excellent. Okay. All right, you should recognize this. All right, classic, right? Okay, Julie Garland, Over the Rainbow from The Wizard of Oz. We all know that song, right? Very classic. Okay, watch when somebody else does it. Exact same words, exact same tune, but done in a totally different voice, a totally different style. Okay, he made it his own. He did something different that people hadn't done before. He wasn't just singing Judy's song. He was singing his own song with his own style, his own personality. Okay, that's what we're talking about. You can emulate them, but don't imitate them. There's a difference there. One more example, just because I think these are fun. Okay, you probably know what's coming next. Ooga chugga, ooga, ooga, ooga chugga, ooga, ooga, ooga chugga, ooga, ooga. Okay, again, same song, same words, but they did it different, right? They put their own little groove in there. They were having fun with it. They made it their own. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about learning from people, but make it your own. It needs to reflect your own style. See if I can get my presentation back up here. Okay, here we go. Hopefully it'll catch up to us here. Trust your instincts, okay? If you think that something is kind of feeling forced or feeling artificial, or you're trying too hard and it's just not working, it just doesn't sound like you, you're probably right, okay? And it's really easy to get lazy and to just say, oh, well, it's good enough, I'll just go on. And sometimes it's okay to just get some stuff on the page and then go back and rewrite and get it better. But you need to make sure that you're not letting that just go. Okay, you need to go back. If your instinct is telling you something's off, most likely something is off. It doesn't have that sparkle. It doesn't have that piece of you on the page. So trust your instincts. I've heard a lot of times from authors that they don't like to read in the genre that they write because they're afraid they're going to start imitating other people instead of emulating them. I don't agree with that personally, because in my own life it hasn't been that way. I have, from the time I was little and started with Little House on the Prairie, I have been a historical novel nerd. That's all I read. I don't read anything else. I just love historicals. And when I decided I wanted to try to write, there was no question what I was going to write. It had to be historical because that's what really spoke to me. Now, some people are much more eclectic. In fact, most people are much more eclectic than that. They'll read a little suspense, they'll read a little romance, they'll read a little women's fiction, they'll read, everything. And that's great. You can learn something from all those different authors and different genres. But don't be afraid to read the stuff that you enjoy the most, because when you go to write, you need to write the stuff that you enjoy the most, okay? So stay true to that. It's not going to steal from your voice. You're not going to steal from other people. You can learn from them, but as long as you're writing from an authentic place, it's going to be your voice on the page. It's not going to be Nora Roberts' voice or somebody else's voice, okay? It's going to still be you. Another thing that people are worried about is when you bring on an editor. What if they edit my voice out of my work? That is something that can happen if you're not careful. Sometimes if you have an overzealous editor, they want it to make it sound like them. They want it to have, because when they read it, that's not what speaks to me, but when I want to read it, I want it to sound like this, and they'll kind of go in and maybe, tweak stuff a little further than you want it to be tweaked. So when you go back and look at your revisions, make sure it does still have the flavor of your voice in there. Pay attention to what they say, because they are professionals for a reason. They know what they're talking about. They understand the market. But make sure it still sounds like you when you get done. And if you work with a good editor, they are really good at that. I have been very fortunate to work with editors who understand my style and my voice, and I've never had a problem with my voice suddenly disappearing from the page. It's still there. And if something comes up that I catch as I'm going through the read-through, because let me tell you, you have to read those books I don't know how many times. By the time you go through all the different editing stages, I am so sick of the story that I'm like, it comes out in published form, and I never open it. It's just like, let me just enjoy the cover art, because I'm done with that one. But by the time you go through, you catch things that don't really sound like you, and you're like, did I write that? And it's funny, every once in a while I look it up, I did write it like that, but that doesn't really sound like me. Let me change it a little bit. So there's always time to tweak and refine and to make it yours, okay? Now, there are some pitfalls with author voice. If you're not careful, you can get so invested in projecting your voice on the page that it becomes the front page instead of the characters from your story. You never want to steal the spotlight from the characters, okay? We all enjoy our own writing, otherwise we wouldn't do it. But we have to make sure it's not about me. It's about the characters. It's about the story. That needs to be the top priority. And so there's a few kind of pitfalls that I want to go over that can help you keep from overtaking the story with your own voice instead of letting the character's voice shine. So the first one is author intrusion. This can come in a lot of different ways. Kind of the classic example is kind of pictured here, where you're in her point of view, okay? You're around the corner, you're digging in your purse. Little did she know that the serial killer that had been stalking her this whole week is right around the corner. You can't write that if you're in her point of view because she doesn't know that the serial killer is right around the corner. So that's what you call inserting the author. The author is intruding. He's giving information that the character doesn't know. You have to be subtle. You have to be tricky. You have to look for ways to convey the urgency, the suspense, without getting outside of your character's head. So don't insert yourself where you don't belong. Okay, another thing that can happen is the language that you are using in your narrative to describe, what's going on in the story. It has to fit that character, and we'll talk about this more when we get into deep point of view. But if you are a very educated, let's say you're a college-educated person, probably most of us are, and you're writing, from your experience, you're going to have all these, big words. You have these ideas. Well, if your character is a 6-year-old kid, they're not going to talk like you do. They're not going to think like you do. You need to make sure you're not inserting yourself into the story, but you have to revert to your childhood, right? And what would your 6-year-old self say and do here? So you have to make sure that the narrative fits with who the characters are, okay? So even though you are still the one projecting, you are still the one telling the story, it has to come through the characters. So you don't want to be in the way of that. Another way that authors can intrude is we all have kind of our pet issues, our pet, maybe our passions for certain causes, or I don't know, but they call it issue-driven fiction. You don't want to have the whole story is just told to get your point across that we have to save the environment. Okay? That can't be the whole reason you're telling the story. It has to be a story. It has to be captivating on itself. And if you keep pushing stuff in that doesn't really belong to the characters, it's just you. There's a lot of stuff in today's world that I can be, very excited about and passionate about. That, okay, slavery is wrong. I believe that. If my character was in Alabama back, in let's say 1850, he's not going to think that. He's going to think, I need these slaves to help me get my, my plantation run. He's going to see value in that. But if I keep pushing my own issues into there, the characters are not going to feel authentic. Now, there are ways that you can work in, you can have a character that doesn't, go along with the mores of the time, but you have to be careful with that because it has to still feel realistic and authentic to the story. So don't push your own issues into, I also write, I write historical, but I also write for the Christian market. And so I do have spiritual aspects in my stories. And that's one of the things that Christian authors have to be very careful about, that we're not pushing the Christian message so hard that it becomes we're preaching, right? We don't want to preach a story. We want to have readers get so involved in the story that they're captivated and they are entertained and they're excited, and it happens to make a spiritual impact on them as they read the story. It has to be very subtle. It has to be true to the characters, true to the story, not just my agenda pushing and preaching at you. So that's something we have to be careful about in that particular genre. So you have to be really careful. Don't push your agenda. You'll have certain themes that will probably come up in most of your books, and that's great. That's who you are. That's part of what you're writing about. But you have to be careful that it's true to the story, true to the characters. Another thing we were talking about earlier, there's a lot of research that goes into writing a book. Whether you're writing historical or contemporary, there's a lot of research that goes in. You have to know all the occupations. You have to know how to kill somebody right. You have to, there's all kinds of stuff that goes into it, okay? You have to be careful because you have done the research, man. You have put weeks into figuring out the perfect poison to use to kill this character off. Okay, that may be like 2 sentences in your whole book, okay? You have collected, a dissertation this thick of information that gets 2 sentences in your book. And sometimes you're like, but I have so many cool things that I just want to put in there because everyone's going to be as excited about me, about this as I am. They don't really care. They just want to know, okay, you killed him? Okay, let's move on. And so you have to be careful that you're not putting all the stuff, all the research in that you've worked so hard on, you've done all your due diligence. Put enough in to flavor your story, to make it authentic, to make it make sense, but don't, do, here's a, 3-page dump about how to shear a sheep. That's not going to do it for your reader. They're going to it's time to put this book down and pick something else up because I don't care about shearing any sheep. Another thing is you're writing in different points of view. I am a female. I have to be very careful when I'm writing in the male point of view that I don't sound too feminine. Okay? Occasionally I will get a critique partner who will say, this doesn't sound like what a man would say. And I'm like, okay, let's go back and let's change that so it's a little more masculine. I got to put on my boots and I got to figure out how to make this sound more masculine. So you have to be careful that you as the author are not intruding into the character and changing them into something that they're not. Okay? All right, so what are some ways to help us dodge this author intrusion? Sometimes if you set your manuscript aside and maybe you wait weeks before you pick it back up and you read it with fresh eyes, things will jump out at you that you were too close to see before. This happens a lot when I get like my galleys back, my final copy of the book. I read it and I pick up on things that, I didn't realize this doesn't exactly fit with because I'm a very slow writer. It takes me, I write 1 full-length novel and 1 novella a year. So it takes me about 10 months to write a full-length book. When I am writing a little bit over time, it feels like, I haven't done that in forever. It's like, okay, you did it like 20 pages ago, and someone that's reading quickly is going to pick up on that. So fresh eyes can help you pick up on things. I talked about critique partners, how they help me. Listen to people who read your manuscript. I would highly recommend having critique partners or having a beta reader, having somebody read your manuscript before you send it off. Get feedback from them. I like to do it as I go because I am a very odd writer. I don't write multiple manuscripts, word just left my head. Drafts, there we go, I found it. I write 1 draft. I am very odd. Most people do not do it that way, but that's how I do it. I'm a perfectionist, so that's kind of how I have to go. So it takes me a week to write 1 polished chapter, and I go back and I edit as I go. I send that polished chapter off to my critique partners. They give me feedback. I tweak it. I move on, and then I can go on to the next chapter. That's how I do it. Some people like to just wait until they have the whole manuscript done because their first draft is just yucky, and they don't want anybody to see it. That's fine. Write the way that you write. Get the stuff on the page, go back, revise, make it as polished as you can, then send it off to a reader to read the whole thing at once. And they'll pick up on things that maybe you didn't see. I like to do it a chapter at a time because that way if they find a problem, it's a whole lot easier to fix it right then when it just happened than after you've written the whole book and you're like, wait, this plot just doesn't work. And you have to go back and write 200 more pages to fix the hole that you created. So I like to do it as I go, but find out what works for you. Find people you trust. People who you respect their opinion. You don't have to always do everything they say. If something that they recommend does not resonate with you, you don't have to do it that way. Just take what they have to say, listen to it, process it, decide, is this something I should change, is it not? Find a way to change a little bit, tweak it to make it your own, and then move on from there. Be willing to kill your darlings. I think it was Stephen King who said that, I'm not sure. We put a lot of ourselves into our writing. And when we craft something and we think, this is so good, I just love this scene. And then you have people read it and they're like, okay, that was a nice scene, but it didn't do anything for the plot. It didn't push anything forward. It just kind of sat there. It was just like, oh, look, I have a lovely picture on the wall. Isn't it pretty? And then, now something else exciting is happening. They don't care about the pretty picture on the wall. They just want to get to the exciting stuff that's happening. So you have to be willing to cut and chop and be ruthless with even the stuff that you love in order to make sure that your plot is moving forward, your story is moving forward. Invest the same energy into developing your character's voice that you invest in your own author voice. They're the ones that need to be seen. You are the invisible behind the scene, just like puppet master, that you're creating this environment. You're like, when you have the theater people, you're like the lighting guy, who's making sure everything is just looking perfect, but it's the actors on the stage that get all the credit, right? It's the actors that get all the attention. Look out for pet phrases. This one is one that I have to be really careful about. When you work to find just the perfect description of her eyes, mossy green eyes. I had a book where I had mossy green eyes. And those mossy green eyes, they showed up all over the place. And I was so proud of those mossy green eyes. But my editor said, there are way too many mossy green eyes in this book. Because, like I said, it takes me a long time to write a story. So I hadn't used mossy green eyes in 6 weeks. Okay, that was like 30 pages. So, someone who's reading the book in 2 days, they're going to find those mossy green eyes. And pretty soon, guess what happens? They start counting. Okay, we're up to 6 mossy green eyes. Oh, there's number 7. And they don't even care about the story anymore. They're not invested. They've been pulled out because all they care about is, are we going to get mossy green eyes again? I mean, what's up with that? Watch out for those pet phrases. Once you start, if someone gives you a hint that, oh, this is happening, there's a wonderful thing in Word. You can search. Okay? Search and find every time that you use mossy green. Oh my goodness, there it is. And there it is again. And then kill at least half of them. Okay? Just get rid of them. If you want to find a different descriptor, that's fine. If you want to even just take the eyes completely out of the sentence, that's fine too. Do something to make it fresh. Because after a while, if your hero's been tunneling his fingers through his hair, pretty soon all they think of is, oh man, is he got an itchy scalp? Or, what's going on with that? Okay? You have to figure out ways. And it's a delicate balance because we're building our character, right? He has his own quirks. He probably does run his fingers through his hair a lot. But you don't want to say that every time because pretty soon that's all the readers are picking up on. They don't care anymore. They don't care what is causing him anxiety. They just, oh, there the fingers go again through the hair. So you got to watch out for that. Okay, other words. The word just. I use the word just way too much. The word no, K-N-O-W, I use that one way too much. You have to be really careful. I love it with my critique partners because I know that this is a problem for me. And so I think I am being really vigilant, right? I am making sure that I don't, and then I get a critique back, with my chapter, and there's like blue font, here, 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 all the word just. And I'm like, oh no, I thought I was doing so good and there just is all over the place. So you got to watch out for those. When you start, the more that you write, the more you kind of realize what your own foibles are, okay? You kind of know where your weaknesses are. So then you become more aware. And the more aware you are, the better, because then you can be on the offensive. You can be grabbing these back as soon as you write just, oh, take that one back. Now, every once in a while, you need a just, because it just communicates. See, it just communicates what you are wanting to convey. But you have to be really careful not to overdo, because anytime you overdo something, it's no longer unique. I love crafting analogies. That's one of my favorite things to do, and we're going to have an exercise to do this later on. I love finding just the right comparison. If you have a Western hero, you find something really Westerny that just makes the perfect analogy. I love that. But I love it so much that I could use it again, right? Because, if it was really cool once, it'd probably be really cool twice. If it's something is really unique, guess what? People will remember it. They'll be like, oh, that was really cool. And then it's like telling a joke a second time. It's just not funny the second time you tell it, right? So if you find something that's really unique and just perfect, enjoy it and never use it again. It may be the only time in your whole career that you use that phrase. So really enjoy it while it's there, okay? And then never bring it up again. Because if it is unique, people will remember it, which we want. We want them to be, excited and impressed and all that. But we don't want it to become something that becomes routine because then it loses their punch. So we've talked about descriptors, we've talked about words. Sentence structure. This is kind of my own little, if I was going to get on a platform, maybe this would be one of my little platforms that I would get on. You have to be careful to vary your sentence structure. If all of your sentences have the same rhythm, It's like being rocked to sleep, okay? It's very, and then you just kind of drift off, right? So you have to kind of mix stuff up. Just look at your page. Does every paragraph start with the hero's name? Probably don't want that. Probably want to mix things up. Are all the paragraphs about the same length? Probably don't want that. Throw in some dialogue. Throw in a real punchy sentence fragment that just stands all by itself. He was leaving. Or, I don't know, that's not even a fragment. But, you could do something that's just punching, stick it out by itself, and move on. But you have to be careful. This is my weakness. I had mossy green eyes. I'll tell you another one of my weaknesses. I love a good fragment that just really punches. You start using too many of them, guess what happens? They lose their punch. Okay, so you have to be really careful. You got to keep varying it. Keep things exciting. Keep it interesting. Long sentences, short sentences. Some start with a phrase instead of with the subject. Some start, with the pronoun instead of the hero or heroine's name. Mix it up so that the reader isn't lulled to sleep. We don't want them to get too relaxed. We want them to be on the edge of their seat, keeping on turning the pages. Okay, so kind of vary that. Keep it moving. All right, we have this lovely, lush, beautiful, opulent purple prose, okay? Purple prose, to me, is what I think of literary fiction. And you might write literary fiction, and if so, do it up. Just get invested in that garden and smell it all and just be there. I don't write literary, I write genre fiction. Most authors write genre fiction because it's pulp fiction. It's what the populace wants, right? It's the fun stories. You get into it and you keep turning the pages. It is good to be a genre writer. You don't have to worry about impressing with just beautiful poetic language. Now, if you write poetry, you probably should impress with beautiful poetic language. But for most of us as genre writers, we want people to be so invested in the story that they don't even notice the words that are telling the story. Okay, the words are just the vehicle to create the experience, okay? So don't get hung up on, I have to throw in some big words, or I have to do this, or I have to do that. It's not about impressing your reader. Your reader's not reading your book to be impressed. They're reading the book to be entertained. It's about entertainment. It's about the story. So focus more on creating a captivating story, a fascinating, page-turning story, and don't worry about trying to impress, the literary elite, because they're not going to be impressed with genre fiction. That's just their thing. They like to keep their noses up in the air and do their own thing, and that's good for them. Go for them. Okay. All right. One of the first lessons that I learned as a young writer was RUE, rue. Okay, this I think made a big impact on me because even in my normal life, I like to explain things. Okay, my husband, I have 3 children. If my kids, misbehave, my husband just goes and poof, pop them. Right, that's it. I want to explain why I am upset, why what they did is wrong, why they should never do it again, why I have to discipline you, but it's killing me to do so. And then once it happens, I want to comfort them and I want to, stroke their hair. Yes, exactly. I want to explain everything because I want to make sure they don't misconstrue my intent, right? It's not that I'm mean and I don't like you. I love you and I want to make sure you understand all of that. Okay, when we get to your readers, you can't be that way. All right? Because how many of us have felt condescended to? Okay? Someone is explaining too much. I'm an experienced author, but if someone comes and starts to talk to me about, oh, I know all of this because this, that, and the other, and I'm sure you don't know any of this stuff because, you're just not as experienced as me, I'm going to be kind of offended by that, right? So you have to be really careful. Your readers are savvy. Most people who are dedicated readers have been reading their entire life, right? They love books. They are story people. They're going to get it. And it's your job to be clever enough with how you write it to make sure they do get it without you having to explain. So RUE stands for resist the urge to explain. So for example, repeating your point or a character's action to make sure your reader catches it, okay? So we've done a really good job of having him throw his stuff down and pound his fist on the table, and then you say, he was so angry. I think they kind of picked up on that, okay? All right, you don't have to make sure your readers get it. They're going to pick up on it if you do it right, okay? Explaining, and again, here's the research thing, explaining something in nauseating detail to make sure your reader knows exactly how an old-fashioned coffee grinder works. Just say they cranked it and made a cup of coffee. You don't have, because the reader doesn't really care, okay? Unless, he's grinding up something that's not coffee in the cup, some kind of mystery, I don't know. Unless he's doing something really odd, you probably don't need to go into that much detail, okay? Another one is trying to explain the character's motivation, right? We're all about, okay, the character has to have motivation so that we know what's pushing him forward. Okay, let the reader discover that through the course of your story. Don't come out at the beginning of your novel and say, he was on a quest for vengeance because, his brother was killed and, whatever. Let them find that out as the other characters are figuring out what's going on with them. Let there be some mystery. Let there be some digging that the reader has to do to figure stuff out. Don't just tell them everything at the front, because then that loses, why are they going to read the story if they already kind of know what's going on? So don't explain everything. Use subtlety, drop hints here and there throughout the story so that the reader gets to be invested and gets to discover things as they read. That's why they keep turning the pages, because there's a question in their mind. How are they going to get out of this situation? Or why did he do that? That seems so out of character. Or what was going on with her? You need to leave those questions so that the readers can discover it. Okay. All right. If you have a piece of paper, we're going to practice. Okay.
Will I be graded?
Yes. No, you won't. Okay. We have Cinderella. All right. I grew up on Disney. Love Disney. Love romance. Okay. You guys in the room, it's going to be okay. I promise. Okay. Now, I want you to think of your own authentic voice, your writing style, your personality, the genre that you enjoy writing. Okay, so here she is. She's just arrived at the ball. She's still on the outside. She hasn't come in yet. No one has seen her. And I want you to write a short little narrative focused on like her internal dialogue, what she's saying to herself, what's going on in her head. And I want you to focus on amplifying the voice or style that best suits you. Dramatic, witty, snarky, sweet, whatever is you, infuse that with your unique perspective and your way of seeing the world, your personality, your style, your voice. You can use whatever genre you want. For example, if you write romance, maybe this is your typical wallflower story where she's had a makeover and she's ready to come into the party. If you write suspense, maybe Cinderella is an undercover CIA operative with a 9mm strapped to her leg under that poofy dress. She's there for something else. Maybe you write science fiction. Maybe she could be, my husband used to watch this show all the time, maybe she's an Air Force lieutenant who stepped through a Stargate and donned medieval clothing to fit in with the locals so that she can find the ore that she needs to fix her ship and get back home, whatever. If you write more women's fiction, maybe she's just inwardly ranting about how uncomfortable glass slippers are. Okay, there's a whole lot of options you can go with here. But I want you to take maybe 5 minutes, write something short, what's going through her head, and just like we were talking about with the Food Network stuff, I bet no one's going to have the same story. All right, so take a few minutes, write, and then we'll have a few brave people share what they wrote. to give you another minute, and then I'll take brave volunteers. Okay, I had one already volunteer up front, so Phyllis, you want to be our first guinea pig? She had fun with this.
This may be a big, big mistake. Cinderella stepped through the looking glass, worried about fitting in with all the royalty. Although she purchased the perfect dress, she still felt fat from the birth of her fifth child. Quote, "Oh, how I hope Prince Charming found my other slipper," she whispered to herself. Sorry, I was just talking about
That's great. I would have never expected 5 children, so that's there you go. And she has plenty of poofiness in her dress to kind of cover it up. That's good. All right, anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Why do I even want to enter? She thought. After all, the prince has already said he never wants to see me again. I think I'll steal his favorite horse and ride to the next castle where their balls are a lot more fun. Besides, these glass slippers are killing me. I told the fairy godmother I was size 9, not size 6.
All right. All right. I heard a lot of personality in that. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Can I read?
Please.
Very short. How could she face him after what she'd done? No beautiful dress and immaculate hairstyle was going to make up for what he must believe was the worst possible betrayal a man, a king, could experience. How could she make him understand and accept that she loved her country as much as he loved his?
I like it. Very good. I have a lot of questions that come up in my mind with that. Very nice. Good job. Yes, here.
Taking a deep breath, she steeled herself for what was to come. Her whole life she dreamed of a night like this. Now it was here. Relish every moment, she told herself, pausing to memorize the intricate carving on the castle door right in front of her. She jumped when the door opened and another partygoer exited. She heard sounds of laughter and music through the opening. Light streamed through, highlighting the ground before her. Taking another deep breath, she stepped forward.
Okay. Very good. Very good. You feel how invested she is with this. Yes, sir.
He noticed her gloves were damp, and her camisole was stuck to her chest. What felt like gallons of sweat pooled between her breasts, trickling down her belly, and her thighs were sticky. What am I doing here, she thought. I'm a dust mop, not a princess. Curse you, fairy godmother. I shouldn't be here.
That's an interesting twist. She doesn't want to be there. Yes, ma'am.
I hope that most of us in here do not have virgin ears, but the little guys back there, I don't know. Okay, well, here we go. Oh, shit. They're all wearing boots and jeans. Wait till I get a hold of Matilda. She's going to be one dead godmother. Now, I look like a stuck-up bitch my stepsisters are, and there's my man in tight jeans, romancing my ugly stepsister, looking up at him with her tortilla droopy eyes. And I ran out of time.
I like it. I like it. Again, very unexpected, very unique, very good. Yes, ma'am.
Her boots were a
never take them off, no matter what. She hesitated a few minutes to stare at the batty lady who was telling her to sit. If her new dress was any shade of pink, she would definitely throw a hissy.
All right, we got a tomboy here. That's right. Very good. In the back, yes.
Cinderella approached the threshold of the ballroom, her hair coiffed and dress fastened. The prince's ring must be on his right hand, she thought. She edged closer to the proximity of the desired object, making small talk with the merrymakers, but her eyes stayed fixed on the prize. Once a thief, always a thief, she decided. I may as well enjoy the evening.
Nice. Nice. She's not there for him. She's there for the goodies. Okay. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Ella mingled with the crowd, doing her best to avoid the prince. He was handsome, no doubt, but that breath. She'd never encountered such halitosis in all her life. Not even her evil stepsisters could compete. He could wilt a rose. In fact, the carnation pinned to her dress was suffering gravely from exposure. If only her fairy godmother had given her a tin of breath mint.
I like it. I like it. Very fun. Can you see the difference in style, in choices? I mean, we have very witty, we have a little snarky, we've got all kinds of different, right? That's what makes you unique. That's what makes your voice shine. So as you go and you approach your own manuscripts, keep that in mind, make it authentic to you, and make it shine. And I think we're going to take a break, and then I'll come back for a second half.